Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome to Autonova. Remember to like and subscribe to support the journey. Now, let's dive into the next chapter of A Will Eternal. The moon cast shafts of white light down onto the earth below, creating a scene of both biting coldness and gentle softness. Overall, it was breathtakingly beautiful. Shui Mei looked very striking as she stood there in front of the door to the spirit abode. She wore a voluminous robe, but the curves of her body were still visible beneath the fabric. She looked very beautiful. Her voice was soft, but at the same time, slightly raspy in a way that almost made Bai Xiaochun's ears itch. Last time, it didn't matter what Bai Xiaochun said when he tried to get her to come out of her immortal's cave, she had remained inside. To see her suddenly appear right out in the open caused him to smile. Last time you refused to see me. This time, there's nowhere for you to escape to. The familiar way in which he spoke to her, not even bothering to address her, caused her to look deeply at him, a strange light gleaming in her eyes. Although she wore a mask, making it impossible to see her facial features, there was something about her that seemed very weak. Many thanks for your kindness in saving my life, Blood Master. When you came to my immortal's cave last time, I was injured, and had just lost the struggle to become Blood Master. I felt blank inside, and didn't feel up to facing you. Please forgive me. With that, she clasped hands and bowed deeply. As she did, her sleeve slipped down, revealing a scar on her hand that had clearly been there for some time. As she bent over, some of her curves became even more prominent than before, and Bai Xiaochun couldn't help but take a look. Bai Xiaochun cleared his throat and said, "Why are you being so polite, boo? Take off that mask so I can see you." Excitement building in his heart, he took a step toward the door. Shui Mei's eyes widened. Never could she have imagined that Bai Xiaochun would say something like that, nor that he would start walking toward her. Without even thinking about it, she stepped backward. Suddenly, her knees went weak, and she staggered a bit. Eyes flashing with anger, she said, "Blood Master, please behave yourself. You showed great kindness by saving me, but that doesn't give you the right to dishonor me. I'm Shui Mei, not some boo." "Cut the crap," Bai Xiaochun said, feeling less than pleased. He took another step forward, unleashing the power of his cultivation base to flash forward with incredible speed. In the briefest of instants, he was right in front of Shui Mei. At any other time, Shui Mei's cultivation base would have been strong enough to resist him. But she was still recovering from a grievous injury, and wasn't a match for him in any way. In the blink of an eye, he reached out, grabbed her mask, and pulled it off. As her mask was plucked off of her face, black hair spilled down her shoulders like a waterfall. Bai Xiaochun threw the mask off to the side, and her face was revealed, ashen, with starkly cold beauty. She was clearly angry, but was so weak that her anger didn't burn as hot as it might have. Although she wasn't soul-shakingly beautiful, her classic good looks were enough to put her on the same level as Song Junwan. However, this person was not Du Lingfei. Shui Mei backed away further. Her face was pale, and her hair was disheveled. She was even trembling. Eyes flaring with coldness, she pointed at Bai Xiaochun and said, "What do you think you're doing, Night Crypt?" Because of her overall weakness, the coldness in her eyes seemed more like humiliation. When Bai Xiaochun saw her face, his expression flickered wildly, and a murderous aura sprang up around him. His eyes were instantly shot with blood. "If you're not my boo," he said, "then who are you?" His mind was spinning with shock and anxiety. Shui Mei's expression became even more icily angry than before. She almost couldn't believe the way Bai Xiaochun was acting. She had emerged to thank him for saving her life. But unexpectedly, he had ripped off her mask, and then started talking like a madman. Backing up again, a fierce look appeared in her eyes. "Have you gone crazy, Night Crypt? I'll say it again. I'm not your boo. I'm Shui Mei. You're not Shui Mei." Bai Xiaochun's heart and mind were in chaos, and he felt like he was going insane. As he stared at Shui Mei's face, he thought back to what he had occurred inside the Blood Ancestor. The last time that mask had fallen off her face, a very different face had been revealed. "What do you mean I'm not Shui Mei? What are you talking about?" Shui Mei continued to edge away nervously. She suddenly got the feeling that this version of Bai Xiaochun was very, very dangerous, like a bolt of lightning just waiting to strike. "Who are you?" Bai Xiaochun shouted at the retreating Shui Mei. "Why are you pretending to be Shui Mei? Where's the real Shui Mei?" He needed answers. He couldn't accept a situation in which he walked away without an explanation. Flying forward, he reached out and, to Shui Mei's horror, attempted to grab her arm. However, it was in that moment that a light cough suddenly filled the spirit abode. To Bai Xiaochun, that light cough felt like thunder rumbling in his ears. He staggered in place, and Shui Mei managed to duck out of reach of the hand he had been reaching out toward her. She quickly performed a double-handed incantation gesture, causing the flickering image of a plum blossom to appear in front of her. She was now radiating a prickly killing intent, her mind seething with rage toward Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun shook his head violently, but the rumbling sound inside of him didn't stop. Face pale, he stopped in place and looked at the middle-aged man who was walking out of the room behind Shui Mei. He had stern features and looked as dangerous as an unsheathed sword. Shocking pressure rolled into the room with him, making it impossible for Bai Xiaochun to even take a step. Patriarch limitless, Bai Xiaochun said, his pupils constricting. At any other moment, he would have been trembling in fear to face the pressure of a nascent soul patriarch, but at the moment he didn't care. Patriarch limitless had a very serious look on his face as he walked forward and patted Shui Mei on the shoulder. Shui Mei didn't seem pleased, but didn't dare to defy her father and reined in her killing aura. Father, she said by way of greeting. Settling her chi and blood, she dissipated the blood-colored plum blossom. Patriarch limitless, look at your daughter. Bai Xiaochun said, glaring at him. She's not Shui Mei. Clearly, he was so enraged that, despite the pressure weighing down on him, he wasn't willing to back down. Patriarch limitless looked coldly at Bai Xiaochun and said nothing. However, the longer he went without talking, the more pressure roiled out. Bai Xiaochun began to tremble, until finally, he let out a roar, causing streams of blood qi to erupt out. That was blood qi from the blood ancestor, and when it fused with Bai Xiaochun, his energy grew even more powerful. It rose up higher and higher, until he was on a similar level as Patriarch limitless. Shui Mei's heart trembled as she looked at Bai Xiaochun, and then her father. There was a strange light in her father's eyes that she recognized. When that light appeared, it meant that the person he was looking at was very important. I only have one daughter, and this is her. Patriarch limitless swished his sleeve, causing his own energy to dissipate. In response to Patriarch limitless's words, Bai Xiaochun's face drained of blood. However, he still wasn't willing to give in, and said, I saw Shui Mei's face in the heart cavity, and she didn't look like that. Take a close look at my daughter's face, Patriarch limitless said. Although he spoke calmly, it was in a voice that could clearly tolerate no arguments. It was like heavenly thunder pounding in Bai Xiaochun's mind. Heart quivering, Bai Xiaochun took a deep breath and looked closely at Shui Mei. Then he looked back at Patriarch limitless. Finally, he took a few steps back, a look of confusion building up on his face. The facial features of Patriarch limitless and Shui Mei were very similar. Most likely, even mortals would be able to notice the similarities, much less cultivators, who had much keener senses. Obviously, this was a father and a daughter. The look on Bai Xiaochun's face grew even more blank. He thought back to what Du Lingfei looked like, and then compared it to Patriarch limitless, and realized that the two of them didn't look anything alike. Then who did I see back in the heart cavity? He staggered backward again, almost as if he had been struck physically. The confusion in his eyes grew more intense. He simply couldn't believe how everything was playing out. He suddenly started wondering if he was remembering things wrong. If the woman in front of him really was Shui Mei, then how could he have seen Du Lingfei in the heart cavity? Who exactly was Du Lingfei? Bai Xiaochun bitterly recalled everything which had occurred in the trial by fire for Bloodmaster. Gradually, he began to tremble as he thought back to the events which had played out in the Blood Wasteland. In the moment before the teleportation, he remembered seeing a wound on Shui Mei's hand, and also remembered that blood had been dripping down from behind her mask. Clearly, she had been wounded. However, once they reached the tunnel beyond, Shui Mei's wound had disappeared, and there was no blood on her face. In fact, all of her injuries had been healed. Back then, he had assumed that she had used some special technique to heal herself, and hadn't paid much attention to the situation. But now, he realized that there was something very strange about the whole thing. Heart-pounding, he looked up at Shui Mei's hand, and then, began to shake. Right there on her hand was a scar, plainly visible for anyone to see. The sight of that scar caused incredible waves of shock to batter Bai Xiaochun's heart. At that point, Patriarch Limitless's face turned somber, and he slowly said, So, it seems you saw the mysterious person in question. Bai Xiaochun understood. That scar explained everything. The person he had encountered in that tunnel in the Bloodmaster trial by fire had not been Shui Mei. Mayor doesn't remember anything that happened after she entered the tunnel that day, Patriarch Limitless said slowly, his expression serious. That includes everything involving you becoming the Bloodmaster. She only remembers waking up outside of the Blood Ancestor. After realizing she had no memories of the events in the tunnel, her heart was filled with confusion and panic. She immediately came to report everything to me, and even I was shocked. I used all the power at my disposal to investigate the matter, but couldn't come up with any explanation. If you know the person in question, tell me who it is. Bai Xiaochun opened his mouth to speak, but in the end, didn't reveal Du Lingfei's name. He suddenly realized that, considering he didn't know who she really was, he also didn't know if her name was even really Du Lingfei. Everything about her was a big mystery. As he sank further into silence, he also realized that all the clues he had pieced together so far were useless. Finally, he shook his head and clasped hands formally to Patriarch Limitless and Shui Mei. Then he turned and left. Shui Mei sighed. Obviously, Bai Xiaochun had some sort of connection to whoever it was that had replaced her in the tunnel. She could also see that Bai Xiaochun had been struck with deep sadness. Patriarch Limitless watched Bai Xiaochun leave, and did nothing to stop him. Bai Xiaochun had a very special position, and if there was something he didn't want to talk about, Patriarch Limitless couldn't force him to do so. Bai Xiaochun walked down the street for some distance, then randomly selected an empty spirit abode to enter. Once inside, he looked up at the moonlit sky and thought back to everything he remembered about Du Lingfei. Then he reviewed what he had learned from Patriarch Limitless and his daughter. After a while, he sighed. Du Lingfei, just who exactly are you? A month went by, during which time the Spirit and Bloodstream sects slowly absorbed the Profound and Pillstream sects. The enormous city became their new sect headquarters. As for the cultivators of the Spirit and Bloodstream sects, the time they had spent fighting together left many of them with close friendships. Although the two sects were not yet fully united, there was much less friction than before. Occasional conflicts would break out, but overall, things were getting very calm. Everyone seemed to be keeping themselves under control. After all, the war wasn't over yet. Although there were no opponents to fight in the lower reaches, everyone knew their true goal was the middle reaches. Only by becoming a middle reaches sect could the war truly be considered over. That shared goal was like glue binding the Spirit and Bloodstream sects together. As for the Patriarchs and the Gold Core cultivators, they knew more than anyone that if the two sects worked together, they could be like a powerful weapon. However, any disunity could lead to mutual destruction. Because of those realities, and because of Bai Xiaochun, the two sects' alliance continued to grow firm and strong. After reaching an agreement with the Spirit and Bloodstream sects, Patriarch Crimson Soul and the rest of the Profound Stream sect did their best to join in the efforts. They wanted to be a part of the future Middle Reaches sect, and to have a chance to continue to pass down their traditions. The Profound Stream sect cultivators were very sincere in their desire to cooperate. They had been well and truly beaten, and now that a new sect was being founded by the Spirit and Bloodstream sects, they wanted to be a part of it. They also wanted to go to the Middle Reaches and have access to the abundant resources there. Because of that, they didn't refuse any of the demands made of them, and worked hard in every aspect that was required. It was the same with the Pillstream sect. As for those who had betrayed their sect in the past, mercy and understanding were shown, and they were allowed to return to their previous positions. Those two sects had previously been bitter enemies, but now, in this new sect, they had no choice but to be subservient to the Spirit and Bloodstream sects. If they wanted to have a say in the future affairs of the sect, they had to maintain good relations with the other sects, including the Profound Stream sect. That was the only way to ensure that they got their share of the resources to be had in the Middle Reaches. Bai Xiaochun didn't pay much attention to the goings-on between the sects. He knew that the patriarchs would handle affairs in the best way. Having little else to do, he went into secluded meditation. After burying the matter of Du Lingfei in his heart, he emerged refreshed. Just when he was about to go find Big Fatty Zhang and his other friends, the founding patriarch of the Spirit Stream sect sent him a dharmic decree, calling him to the Grand Hall in the middle of the city. Bai Xiaochun wasn't interested in attending any meetings, but he didn't really have any choice. Sighing, he headed in the direction of the Grand Hall. Along the way, any disciples who caught sight of him would clasp hands and bow, expressions of respect and awe on their faces. Bai Xiaochun's heart immediately swelled with pleasure. As he walked along, he would wave and call out greetings. Your hard work is much appreciated, sect nieces and nephews. Keep up the good work. Well done, you have my support, all of you. Slowly but surely, his sour mood faded. Eventually, he reached the Grand Hall, and the disciples on guard duty clasped hands and cried, Greetings, Junior Patriarch. Bai Xiaochun's heart soared into the heavens. Assuming the posture of someone of the senior generation, he clasped his hands behind his back and said, Keep working as hard as you are, and one of these days, you might become junior patriarchs too. With that, he chuckled and strode into the Grand Hall. As soon as he entered, he sucked in a deep breath. The pressure within the hall was so immense that the air was rippling. Right there up ahead of him was an entire group of patriarchs. Patriarch Ironwood and the Song Clan patriarch had not come to join the main force. Without them present, that left 4 patriarchs from the Spirit Stream Sect and 6 from the Bloodstream Sect. 4 patriarchs were present to represent the Profound Stream Sect, including Crimson Soul. Finally, there were 3 patriarchs from the Pillstream Sect. In total, there were 17 nascent soul Taoist masters, whose soul fluctuations completely filled the enormous hall. As soon as Bai Xiaochun entered, the eyes of all 17 individuals focused on him. Different expressions could be seen in those gazes. The patriarchs from the Spirit Stream Sect and the Bloodstream Sect were calm. The Profound Stream Sect patriarchs had conflicted expressions, especially Patriarch Crimson Soul, whose heart trembled with a certain sense of powerlessness. As for the 3 nascent soul patriarchs from the Pillstream Sect, their eyes shone with strange gleams of interest. It all made sense, of course. The entire situation in the cultivation world of the lower reaches had been changed because of Bai Xiaochun. To see so many nascent soul experts staring at him caused Bai Xiaochun to shiver. Suddenly, he was struck with the fear that the patriarchs might have decided to dispose of him now that his usefulness was over, or that they wished to settle accounts based on his past mistakes. His face turned pale, and his eyes widened. Looking around nervously, he became more convinced that he was right. Good morning, patriarchs, he said cautiously. With the exception of the Spirit Stream Sect patriarchs, all of the other nascent soul experts gaped in surprise. However, none of them spoke. Instead, their gazes grew more profound as they stared at him, making it impossible to tell what they were thinking. The Spirit Stream Sect's founding patriarch looked at Bai Xiaochun and said, "Bai Xiaochun, there's something you must." The looks on the faces of the patriarchs' faces caused Bai Xiaochun's heart to tremble. As soon as the founding patriarch started speaking, he was convinced that he was going to say something bad. It would definitely be some sort of dangerous mission or assignment. Bai Xiaochun's face fell, and his heart began to beat rapidly. He suddenly realized that he couldn't allow the founding patriarch to finish that sentence. If he did, it would be very hard to refuse the request. Before he could finish speaking, Bai Xiaochun clutched at his chest and screamed, then coughed up a massive mouthful of blood. Staggering backward, his face turned a sickly pale color, and he gasped, "Patriarchs, I was seriously injured in the fighting, which opened up previously healed wounds. I need to go into secluded meditation to recover. All right, I won't disturb you any longer. Bye now." With that, he hurried toward the door. Before he could take more than a few steps, the founding patriarch glared at him and said, "Stop right there." Bai Xiaochun stopped in place, looking like he might cry at any moment. Coughing up another mouthful of blood, he looked piteously over his shoulder at the founding patriarch. "Patriarch, I really am injured. It's bad, really bad. Besides, I've gotten too famous recently. If I go out on my own, tons of people are going to be after my head. Why don't you give the mission to someone else? I really can't be going out into battle." The founding patriarch looked like he was being struck by a sudden headache, and was unsure of whether to laugh or cry. The other patriarchs of the Spirit Stream Sect were all smiling wryly. They had heard of Bai Xiaochun's personality, but this was their first time seeing it firsthand, and they were struck speechless. The patriarchs from the Bloodstream Sect were even more astonished. Patriarch Limitless almost couldn't believe what he was seeing, and the Arch-Patriarch was shocked. It was hardly necessary to mention the Profound Stream Sect or the Pillstream Sect. Patriarch Crimson Soul's eyes were wide as saucers, and his expression was one of complete incredulity, as if he had just seen a ghost. He almost couldn't believe that the Bai Xiaochun he had seen on the battlefield was the same person as the one standing in front of him. He even started to wonder if was hallucinating, or if Bai Xiaochun had somehow been replaced. The 3 patriarchs from the Pillstream Sect were completely taken aback. The words Bai Xiaochun had just spoken were echoing in their minds, and they had a hard time reconciling that this was the person who had brought about such momentous changes to the eastern lower reaches. "We don't want you to go out on another mission," said the founding patriarch, shaking his head. Bai Xiaochun blinked, then asked for confirmation a few times. "I already said, we don't want you to go out on a mission. Just as you suggested before all of this started, we are discussing the founding of the new sect. We need a name for it, and we're wondering if you had any suggestions." "Oh," Bai Xiaochun said. Nervous, he began to blabber. "A sect name, huh? What about the Undying Sect? Or the Live Forever Sect? No, those won't do. We're going to the middle reaches of the river, right? We need something with the word, river, in it. How about the River-Defying Sect? Or we could go with the Turtle River Sect. Hey, that's a good name. Turtle River Sect. There's some deep meaning in that one. Wait, let me think some more. What about the bastards of? We'll go with River-Defying Sect, the founding patriarch interrupted, worried about where Bai Xiaochun would go next, and that he might say even more unseemly sect names. There's another matter to discuss. During the ceremonies, we need to officially name the junior patriarch of the sect. In addition to the name of the sect itself, we also wanted to ask your opinion on who to pick. Officially name the junior patriarch? Bai Xiaochun's eyes widened, and finally, his heart eased up with the realization that they really hadn't called him here to give him a dangerous mission. Breathing a sigh of relief, his expression turned from nervousness to solemnity. The blood disappeared from his lips, and the paleness of his expression turned into dignity. Suddenly, he looked like a mountain peak, standing there tall, reticent, and heroic. Veins of steel pulsing and eyes flashing like lightning, he said, "No one can handle that responsibility except for me." The sudden change in Bai Xiaochun's demeanor caused more eyes to widen among the patriarchs who sat in the grand hall. That was especially true of Patriarch Crimson Soul of the Profound Stream Sect, who couldn't help but rub his eyes a bit, and then look back at Bai Xiaochun in confusion. It was the same with the Pillstream Sect, and even the Bloodstream Sect patriarchs were shocked. The patriarchs from the Spirit Stream Sect were smiling wryly in embarrassment. The founding patriarch glared at Bai Xiaochun for a moment, then rubbed his forehead. Sounding a bit displeased, he said, "It might be good for you to think about it for a while, don't you think?" "Patriarch, I don't think anyone else but me is suitable to become the junior patriarch of the River-Defying Sect." "What's there to think about?" "I agree." Bai Xiaochun stood there, looking off into the distance, fairly radiating energy. His hair swirled around him, and his eyes seemed to shine like the stars. He seemed like something beyond a chosen, almost like a deity. The Bloodstream Sect's arch-patriarch cleared his throat and said, "You're already completely famous. Why don't you give some of the other disciples a chance?" Bai Xiaochun flicked his sleeve and gazed up into the air, looking completely stern and awe-inspiring. It was as if his righteousness could shake everything in heaven and earth. "Patriarchs, the reason I'm so famous is because I take my responsibilities seriously. That's an important quality. I, Bai Xiaochun, am a person who loves my sect. How could I force other disciples to sacrifice themselves to handle my responsibilities? I could never treat them so unfairly. That's not how Bai Xiaochun operates. Not ever. Fate has selected me for this role, and if the sect picks me, then I won't frown even if I have to go through hell or high water." "But you've been wounded," Patriarch Crimson Soul suddenly said, "and as the junior patriarch, you would likely encounter even more situations in which you could end up wounded." Bai Xiaochun's eyes widened, and for the first time, he actually took a moment to think. After a moment of indecision, he gritted his teeth and then chuckled casually. "As cultivators, which of us haven't shed some blood? I, Bai Xiaochun, have a dream. I dream that for the rest of my life, the day will never come that I am forced to shed even a single tear for my sect. Even if I have to shed a lifetime of blood, I will make that dream become a reality. And that is because I am the junior patriarch of the River-Defying Sect." Although Bai Xiaochun was smiling, it was a smile of utmost sincerity and solemnity. It contained his hopes for the sect, and his determination to stride into the future. As he spoke, his energy surged, and everyone in the grand hall was shaken inwardly. Were it not for the fact that all of the patriarchs had witnessed Bai Xiaochun's performance from earlier, they would all be convinced that he was the epitome of righteousness and loyalty. The hall fell into silence. Strange expressions could be seen on the faces of the patriarchs. A long moment passed, and finally the founding patriarch of the Spirit Stream Sect chuckled. "Very well then. In a month, we'll hold the ceremony. The River-Defying Sect shall be founded in the eastern lower reaches of the cultivation world. Furthermore, we will send a petition to the Starry Sky Dao Polarity Sect in the upper reaches, asking for permission to replace the Sky River Court." Laughing loudly, Bai Xiaochun said, "I've been waiting for this war for a long time." After conferring a bit more with the patriarchs, he turned and left, heart swelling with pride. Upon leaving the hall, his spirits did not fall. Everywhere he went, people looked over, at first in shock, and then with expressions of fervor and respect. Upon arriving back at the spirit abode, he sighed comfortably, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Those old fogies scared the daylights out of me. I thought they were going to give me a dangerous mission or something. Why didn't they bring up the junior patriarch thing earlier?" Feeling very pleased with himself, he shook his head and settled down cross-legged. "As the junior patriarch, I'm definitely going to be completely and utterly famous. Ha ha ha. Soon I'm going to need to change the rallying cry. I can't use the Middle Peak Bloodmaster has infinite magical powers, the Spirit Stream Heaven Dao expert can shake the whole world anymore. It'll have to be the River-Defying Junior Patriarch is unparalleled under heaven." Such thoughts got him even more excited than before. In terms of safety, HMPH. Being the junior patriarch is definitely the safest of all. They're not going to be sending me out on missions, that's for sure. And I'll definitely have lots of other disciples to guard me whenever I leave the sect. Bai Xiaochun felt wonderful, and could hardly wait for the ceremony the following month. The official founding of the River-Defying sect became the hottest topic of conversation among the disciples of the four sects. Furthermore, word spread until the entire eastern lower reaches was abuzz. All of the smaller sects, as well as countless cultivator clans and numerous rogue cultivators, were all completely shaken. To them, even a single one of the four great sects was a vast and important organization, but now, all of the four great sects had joined into one. A powerful organization like that hadn't ever appeared in the history of the eastern lower reaches. Before long, word spread to the cultivator clans and smaller sects in the Delta region. However, there was even more news that started to circulate, news that got everyone shaking with madness and astonishment. The goal of the River-Defying sect wasn't just to join together into one large sect. They wanted to fight their way into the middle reaches and take over the Sky River Court as the dominant sect there. That news virtually drove people crazy. After all, if the River-Defying sect succeeded, then it would mean that 4 slots would open up for new sects in the lower reaches. The River-Defying sect's thirst to become a middle reaches sect only continued to grow stronger. Likewise, the thirst of the Delta sects and cultivator clans to establish their place in the lower reaches was just as strong. And thus, disputes arose, as well as secret treaties. The entire eastern lower reaches of the cultivation world was shaken. As the commotion grew, everyone was focused on the grand ceremony to come. The River-Defying sect did not establish an official sect headquarters. As for the city in the mountains, it was only a temporary base. According to the River-Defying sect, the only suitable headquarters was currently occupied by the Sky River Court. Despite being only a temporary headquarters, it didn't take long for the more than 1 million cultivators of the 4 sects to renovate the entire city. They even expanded it, making it look more glorious than before. The reserve powers of all 4 sects were present, marked by enormous vortexes up in the sky, which emanated shocking pressure at all times. As the ceremony approached, the sects and clans of the lower reaches used any and all means necessary to arrange for emissaries from their various organizations to hurry toward the city. As for those who weren't powerful enough to send people such a long distance in such a short time, they were simply out of luck. Of course, the eastern lower reaches was a huge place, and most sects had connections to other cultivator clans, as well as forces in the Delta regions. Because of that, a vast number of people converged on the city to attend the ceremony, so much so that the city itself couldn't contain them, forcing them to set up camp in the surrounding area. More people arrived every day. Soon, the time for the ceremony arrived. On that day, the cultivators of the River-Defying sect decorated the entire city. They all wore new Taoist robes, and looked completely spectacular. The vortex above rumbled with power, and the 17 patriarchs hovered in the air like 17 gods. Beneath them were more than 100 legacy echelon cultivators in the gold core stage, who were precious gems in the sect, and the hope for future glory. Further down were the hundreds of prime elders, who shone like glittering stars. Then were the even larger numbers of foundation establishment cultivators, whose energy caused brightly colored lights to flash in heaven and earth. The people outside the city who had come to observe the ceremony were completely shocked, and couldn't help but cry out in shock. Suddenly, an archaic voice echoed out in all directions, a voice that boomed like thunder and caused the hearts of all cultivators who heard it to tremble on the verge of exploding. Let heaven and earth bear witness. Let an oath be sworn to time itself. This day is the day the River-Defying sect is founded. We, the Spirit Stream sect, henceforth abandon the name of our sect, and join the River-Defying sect. We, the Bloodstream sect, henceforth abandon the name of our sect, and join the River-Defying sect. We, the Profound Stream sect. We, the Pill Stream sect. The voices of the patriarchs of the 4 sects began to ring out, one after another. Their voices filled the entire world with intense rumbling sounds. As their oaths echoed out, it proved that in the eastern lower reaches, a sect was rising up the likes of which had never been seen before. Bai Xiaochun's heart pounded with excitement as he hovered in midair, looking up at the ceremony going on. It was then that a strange sign suddenly appeared in the sky. Golden light flooded out, flickering, scintillating, as if a bolt of golden lightning had appeared. Then, a huge vortex appeared higher up in the sky, a vortex fully 30,000 meters wide. It was as if the sky itself were collapsing. Intense pressure weighed down that affected even the patriarchs, the gold core cultivators, and the River-Defying sect's reserve powers. This energy made them seem like fireflies looking up at the bright moon. The pressure didn't just affect the River-Defying sect. The entire city began to tremble, and the cultivators who had come to observe the ceremony started to shake. They felt as if heavenly might were crushing down on them, and they dropped to their knees, trembling, to kowtow. Not a sound could be heard in all creation. The River-Defying sect's patriarchs were all trembling as they struggled to raise their heads. In the huge vortex up above, an enormous eye slowly opened. It was several thousand meters wide, and as it looked down, everyone who saw it was shaken. It was as if the entire world were a bottle, and someone outside of the bottle were looking into it through the bottleneck. Bai Xiaochun's heart was pounding in shock. He could hardly believe what he was seeing. The eye slowly took in the sights below, and then a powerful voice erupted out from the vortex to fill heaven and earth. River-Defying sect, hear the decree of the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect. The patriarchs of the River-Defying sect exchanged enthusiastic glances. Then the arch-patriarch of the Bloodstream division clasped hands and bowed deeply. We will comply with any decree. The ancient voice then continued. The Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect approves your petition to go to war, and permits you to destroy the Sky River Court and take over its position. Each word spoken by the voice boomed like thunder, echoing out in all directions. When the last words were spoken, a golden beam of light shot toward the arch-patriarch, coming to a stop in front of him in the form of a jade slip. Simultaneously, the vortex vanished. It was as if the giant figure from before had never been there. After a brief moment of silence, the arch-patriarch lifted the golden jade slip high above his head. As he did, all of the cultivators of the River-Defying sect, as well as all of the other cultivators who had come to observe the ceremony, broke out into uproarious cheering. Victory belongs to the River-Defying sect. Victory belongs to the River-Defying sect. Victory belongs to the River-Defying sect. The cacophony of their cheers echoed out to fill the entire world around them. The cultivators of the River-Defying sect were extremely excited, especially those from the Spirit Stream division and the Bloodstream division. Of course, their enthusiasm quickly rubbed off on the disciples of the Profound and Pill Stream divisions. Soon, all eyes were filled with confidence and anticipation. After all, the best way for new allies to get used to each other was to fight side by side in war. Under the bloody grindstone that was war, the four sects would truly become one, would truly transform, and would truly achieve glory. Even as everyone was cheering at the tops of their lungs, the arch-patriarch's gaze swept across the crowd and came to rest on Bai Xiaochun. Then he spoke out in a voice that instantly suppressed all other noise, becoming the only thing people heard. Bai Xiaochun, step forward for the official conferring ceremony. Bai Xiaochun shivered. The atmosphere already had his blood boiling, so he took a deep breath to calm himself, then strode out in front of the 17 nascent soul patriarchs. Disciple Bai Xiaochun offers greetings, patriarchs. As he clasped hands and bowed, his expression was somber, and a murderous aura slowly began to build up around him. He seemed as firm and unyielding as iron, like a celestial warrior who had seen hundreds of battles, a person possessing unmatchable energy. His features were somehow chiseled and grim, and deep in his eyes, stars, moons, and other heavenly bodies swirled about. The power of his blood chi flowed out, creating a blood-colored suit of armor around him, complete with a blood-colored cape. As of this moment, Bai Xiaochun did not seem timid or cowardly, nor even the least bit naughty or mischievous. He stood as straight and tall as a mountain peak, and seemed as profound and deep as the ocean. Everyone watching the scene was shaken, especially the cultivators who were just seeing him for the first time. They gasped, and looks of profound respect appeared in their eyes. They had all heard of Bai Xiaochun, and knew that he was the person responsible for all the momentous changes in the eastern lower reaches of the cultivation world. Now that they could see him for the first time in person, he looked exactly like the cool, collected chosen that they had imagined. The same thing was going through all of their minds. He was obviously a person who lived up to his reputation. So that's Bai Xiaochun? He's the ultimate chosen. I've only heard some stories about this Bai Xiaochun. Some people say that he's wise, intelligent, and courageous, a natural-born prodigy, a star who shines with boundless light. However, I've also heard more than a few people say that he's a greedy coward, completely despicable and shameless. People like him are bound to be the subject of plenty of jealousy. Now that I think about it, I also heard some bad stories about him. But those stories are probably just made up. The people who knew him best were the cultivators from the Bloodstream sect and the Spirit Stream sect. Many of those cultivators were looking at him with wide eyes, almost as if they didn't even recognize him. Big Fatty Zhang gasped, and Hu Yunfei shook his head with a smile. Xu Baosai and many of Bai Xiaochun's other friends were all simply sighing at how skilled he had become at striking the right pose at the right time. Bai Xiaochun felt very proud of himself, and was completely filled with anticipation at the glorious scene which would play out when he officially became the junior patriarch. However, none of those emotions showed on his face. His expression was somber, and his veins of steel were pulsing. He stood there coolly, looking just like he had when he was night-crypt. People immediately began to cheer. All the while, strange expressions could be seen on the faces of the 17 patriarchs. However, inwardly, they were relieved. Many of them had been worried that Bai Xiaochun might act the way he had when he'd met with them earlier, and ruin the ceremony. Bai Xiaochun, as the junior patriarch of the River-Defying sect, you must shoulder a weighty responsibility. Henceforth, you are a core element of our sect. Your life, your honor, and everything else about you are all inextricably linked with the sect. The glory of the sect is also your glory. The shame of the sect is also your shame. Likewise, your glory and shame will belong to the sect. No matter where you go, no matter how much time passes, your home, your roots, and your everything are the sect. If the day ever comes that the sect falls, it will be your responsibility to restore it. If the day ever comes that the sect basks in unheard of glory, it will be your responsibility to defend it. You must ensure that the River-Defying sect never becomes divided, and never loses its heart and soul. Bai Xiaochun, are you prepared to shoulder such responsibility? Your answer please. The Archpatriarch's expression was unprecedentedly calm as he spoke in a voice as explosive as thunder, a voice which caused all hearts to tremble. Bai Xiaochun shivered, and suddenly, all of his pride and complacency vanished. His desire to bask in glory faded away, and he stood there quietly, looking, in rare fashion, truly solemn and respectful. He suddenly realized that the position of junior patriarch wasn't just about glory and fame. It was a serious responsibility. For the rest of his life, he would never able to separate himself from or part ways with the River-Defying sect. It would be his home, and also, the most precious thing in his life. Bai Xiaochun suddenly found himself in a bit of a reverie. He thought back to Mount Hood in the Eastwood Mountains. He thought about his relatives in the village he had grown up in. He thought about how he had held his parents' hands as they passed away. He thought about all the times he'd lit that stick of incense. He thought about everything he'd done in the Spirit Stream sect and the Bloodstream sect. Without even thinking about it, he looked over at Li Qinghao among the legacy echelon cultivators. Li Qinghao's heart was filled with pride that the same Bai Xiaochun he had brought to the sect was now grown up. To see Bai Xiaochun where he was now, and to see him looking over at him, caused Li Qinghao's face to fill with a smile of deep gratification. When Bai Xiaochun saw Li Qinghao smile, he took a deep breath, and an expression of determination filled his face. Looking back at the Bloodstream Division's Archpatriarch, he clasped hands formally. Yes, I'm prepared. He spoke the words slowly, because they were words of utmost importance. After speaking them, the gazes fixed upon him didn't make him feel grand and impressive. Instead, he felt as if a very heavy responsibility had just come to rest on his shoulders. The Archpatriarch gave Bai Xiaochun a profound look. Because of his age and his cultivation base, he could see that Bai Xiaochun had spoken from the bottom of his heart, with complete sincerity. The Archpatriarch nodded, and then looked over at the founding patriarch of the Spirit Stream Division. Both patriarchs could see the looks of determination in each other's eyes. Without any hesitation, the Archpatriarch said, on this day, Bai Xiaochun is conferred with the title of Junior Patriarch of the River-Defying sect. Trembling, the cultivators of the River-Defying sect clasped hands and bowed to Bai Xiaochun. Greetings, Junior Patriarch. It wasn't just the outer and inner sect disciples who bowed. The Foundation establishment cultivators and the Gold Core experts also joined in. The Junior Patriarch of the sect occupied a position second only to the patriarchs themselves. It was even higher than the legacy echelon. Song Ke and the other chosen all had no choice other than to bow their heads. Shangguan Tianyu's hands were clenched tightly, and bitterness gripped his heart, but he had no other options available. Then, a thunderous rumbling filled the air as the countless other cultivators in the audience also offered formal greetings. Greetings, Junior Patriarch of the River-Defying sect. The deafening sound flowed out to fill heaven and earth, causing everything to tremble. Bai Xiaochun looked around, his heart surging. From the look on his face, he had many things he wished to say, and yet, wasn't sure how to express them. A moment passed, and his thoughts slowly coalesced into a single sentence. Although he didn't speak it out loud, it settled down onto his heart, like an indelible mark that would be there for the rest of his life. I live for the sect. He only spoke the words in his heart, but from the expression on his face, the River-Defying sect's nascent soul patriarchs could tell what he was thinking. As they looked back at him, their eyes were filled with reminiscence, encouragement, and deep sighs. Meanwhile, on the roof of a certain spirit abode within the city, a monkey could be seen, sitting there, looking up at the goings-on with a faint smile on his face. The sect isn't going to let you down, kid, the monkey murmured. Sitting next to the monkey was a rabbit, who was also staring up into the sky. The grand ceremony to commemorate the founding of the River-Defying sect was now over. However, the events which had just occurred became a daily topic of conversation among the countless people who inhabited the eastern lower reaches of the cultivation world. Whether it was the dharmic decree of the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect, or the fact that Bai Xiaochun had been conferred the title of Junior Patriarch, it all left an indelible impression upon the minds of the people regarding the power of the River-Defying sect. Soon, the bustle in the temporary headquarters began to die down as the cultivators of the River-Defying sect departed. The Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect's response to the River-Defying sect's request indicated that a new war was on the horizon. The 4 divisions of the River-Defying sect took that war very seriously, and for many people in those sects, it was the culmination of their life's work. They would be fighting to establish a new sect headquarters, to rise from the lower reaches into the middle reaches. It was a war of utmost importance. There were many preparations to be made, and all of the various patriarchs agreed that they needed to go all out, to hold nothing back. The Pill Stream Division and the Profound Stream Division returned to their former territories to prepare everything for departure, including their reserve powers. According to the agreement that had been reached by the patriarchs, they would head to the Bloodstream Division in 2 months' time. From there, they would set out onto the Heavenspan River, and head upstream toward the Sky River Court. As the divisions left their temporary headquarters, Bai Xiaochun had various sect matters to attend to due to his status as the junior patriarch. On one particular evening, the founding patriarch of the Spirit Stream Division had a long discussion with him. The discussion was held in a grand hall, along with Patriarch Ironwood and the other nascent soul patriarchs. Also present were Zheng Yuandong and Li Qinghao. Before beginning to speak, the founding patriarch waved his hand, sealing the entire area so that their words would remain private. Even more surprising to Bai Xiaochun was that the other patriarchs all lent their power to the sealing. Clearly, they were being very cautious. In a final display of caution, the founding patriarch produced a feng shui compass, which, upon activation, sent black and white light streaming out to form yet another sealing layer. Bai Xiaochun could sense terrifying pressure coming from that feng shui compass. Although it looked ordinary, and even a bit worn, he could tell that it contained a level of power similar to the reserve powers of the sects. However, the compass was so dilapidated that it apparently only had the strength left to seal down an area, and nothing more. When the sealing was done, the founding patriarch sighed and looked over at Bai Xiaochun, a very serious expression on his face. This immortal executing compass was passed down by the ancestors. With it here, not even a Diva realm expert would be able to eavesdrop on us, at least not without expending significant effort. Xiaochun, the information I'm about to tell you must be kept completely confidential. If word spread, it could lead to a complete and utter disaster. Bai Xiaochun was already starting to get anxious, and was actually wondering if it would be better to not hear this information. After all, it meant that in the future, the mere slip of the tongue on his part could result in him losing his poor little life. Even as he hesitated over the matter, the founding patriarch continued. We didn't originally intend to reveal these matters to you, but since you are now the junior patriarch of the River-Defying sect, there are some things that can't be kept secret. If certain events played out in the future, and you weren't aware of the truth, it could cause problems for you. Bai Xiaochun could only focus, take a deep breath, and look intently at the founding patriarch. Our Spirit Stream Division's origins do not lie in the Eastern cultivation world. Not even paying attention to Bai Xiaochun's reaction, the founding patriarch looked up, a gleam of reminiscence flickering in his eyes. We come from the Northern cultivation world, from a river source sect that was called the Frigid School. What? Bai Xiaochun said, immediately shaken. Never could he have imagined that the founding patriarch would have something like this to say. To find out such information about the origins of the Spirit Stream sect came completely out of the blue, leaving Bai Xiaochun a bit taken aback. Furthermore, when the founding patriarch mentioned the Frigid School, it instantly caused him to think about the Frigid School medicine manual. Long ago, the Frigid School was the dominant sect at the mouth of the river in the north. It was just as prominent as the Starry Sky Tao Polarity sect. However, because of an unexpected rebellion, the Frigid School collapsed and was supplanted. The survivors had no other choice but to swallow their humiliation and flee for their lives. Eventually, they came to the eastern cultivation world, where they set down new roots. Only 2 survivors actually made it here. One of them was my master, and the other was the true spirit of the Frigid School. My master secretly helped the Spirit Stream sect become one of the 4 major sects in the lower reaches. As for that true spirit, she is the true reserve power within the Spirit Stream division. The other patriarchs in the hall maintained silence. As for Zheng Yuandong and Li Qinghao, both of them had looks of solemnity and shock. Apparently, this was also their first time hearing this information. However, the true spirit was gravely injured, and could do little more than sleep in the form of a frigid corpse. In all the years that have passed, she has never awakened. The only method to awaken her is to use something called the River-Defying pill. With that medicinal pill, the true spirit can be temporarily awakened to resolve virtually any crisis. The truth is that back when we were about to go to war with the Bloodstream sect, our final hope rested in the true spirit. Unfortunately, we only have one River-Defying pill, and can use it only in the absolutely direst of circumstances. As the founding patriarch spoke, his words seemed to contain a profound level of ancientness. Bai Xiaochun's heart was already reeling from the waves of shock that pounded against it. He could hardly even breathe steadily. Over the years, we have tried every possible method to concoct another River-Defying pill. Unfortunately, all such efforts have failed. After we get back to the headquarters, I need you to go offer formal greetings to the true spirit, and also, think of a way to concoct a River-Defying pill, before we get to the middle reaches. If you can, then the Spirit Stream division will be able to provide crucial assistance to the River-Defying sect as a whole. Anticipation shone in the eyes of the founding patriarch as he looked at Bai Xiaochun. As for Bai Xiaochun, he took a deep breath, his mind was spinning, and he almost couldn't believe what he was hearing. After a moment, he thought back to the formula for the River-Defying pill. His research into the pill had led him to the conclusion that it was very, very strange. It was only now that he realized that it was specifically intended to help a true spirit. The River-Defying pill and the Frigid School medicine manual, he murmured. The founding patriarch nodded. A senior member of the sect gave those 2 items to you. It was that monkey, wasn't it? Bai Xiaochun asked suddenly. After a moment of hesitation, the founding patriarch nodded. Suddenly, numerous puzzle pieces clicked into place in Bai Xiaochun's mind. The matter at hand was a weighty one, and he needed more time to digest all the information. After leaving the hall, he returned to his spirit abode, still marveling in disbelief at everything he'd heard. Settling down, he pulled out the Frigid School medicine manual, as well as the formula for the River-Defying pill, which he began to study closely. River-Defying pill, he murmured softly. He was suddenly extremely curious about the true spirit the patriarch had mentioned, and very much wanted to see what she looked like. The following day, the last of the Profound and Pill Stream divisions left. As for the Bloodstream division cultivators, they were still making preparations for departure. They had something very important to do back in the former location of their sect. Before leaving, the Archpatriarch came to find Bai Xiaochun, who was still ruminating over the information about the origin of the Spirit Stream division. As Bai Xiaochun would soon find out, the information the Archpatriarch had to share was just as shocking as the information he had learned from the Spirit Stream division. The Archpatriarch quickly set up a spell formation seal, then looked over at Bai Xiaochun, his expression very serious as he said, "Xiaochun, do you know where our blood ancestor came from?" "Huh? Where the blood ancestor came from?" Bai Xiaochun was taken aback, and couldn't help but wonder why these 2 sects had so many secrets. Both of them had impressive backgrounds, the truth of which left him reeling. He was almost in a daze as he looked at the Archpatriarch. The Archpatriarch sighed disappointedly. "Oh, so you don't know. I'd assumed you would have learned something when you accepted the legacy." All Bai Xiaochun could do was smile wryly in response. "Well, the truth is that none of us know the true origins of the blood ancestor, so let's not worry about that for now. The Bloodstream sect researched the blood ancestor for many years. Eventually, that research led to our theory regarding the legacy of the Bloodlord. Now we know that we were correct. All of those years of research paid off. However, there was more to the theory. Based on all of the research, we are fairly certain that the body of the blood ancestor can still move." Bai Xiaochun's eyes were getting wider and wider. Never could he have imagined that the body of the blood ancestor could be controlled and moved. Then he thought back to how he had temporarily felt himself take over the body of the blood ancestor back when he had received the legacy, and he began to pant. The body of the blood ancestor is enormous, and exists mostly beneath the surface of the Heavenspan River. You are aware of the grand spell formation set up on the 5 mountain peaks that are the 5 fingers of the blood ancestor, correct? The true function of that spell formation is to allow the bloodstream division to control the body of the blood ancestor. Bai Xiaochun immediately thought back to when Patriarch Limitless and Shui Mei had tapped into the spell formation on Middle Peak to influence the blood qi in the area. After becoming a blood master, Bai Xiaochun had been able to directly sense the spell formation. It almost seemed like a set of clothing that existed on the surface of the blood ancestor. By this point, he was starting to understand what the bloodstream division was planning to do. Succeeding at such a task will be extremely difficult, and the bloodstream sect prepared years to do just that. We have even set up spell formations inside of the blood ancestor's body. However, up till now, we have been missing a core element. We need someone who can take all of the blood qi from all of the cultivators of the bloodstream division and focus it together. That is the power that can be used to control the body of the blood ancestor. According to our research and speculations, only the Bloodlord can do such a thing. My hope is that you will return to our headquarters, enter the body of the blood ancestor with us, and take control of it. Then we will head up the river and launch our assault on the Sky River Court. With the help of the blood ancestor, the River-Defying sect's chances of successfully defeating the Sky River Court will be greatly increased. The Archpatriarch's eyes were glowing with a profound light. After all, this was everything he had worked toward throughout his entire life. After a long moment of silence, Bai Xiaochun nodded. He was also filled with anticipation at the thought of controlling the body of the blood ancestor. The Archpatriarch smiled, then made arrangements for exactly when to take Bai Xiaochun inside the blood ancestor. Afterward, he left with the rest of the bloodstream division to go back and make the necessary preparations. A few days later, the spirit stream division forces began to depart. Bai Xiaochun joined them as they left the city, and it was only then that he was certain that no one else was going to come reveal more secrets to him. So many secrets, he thought, sighing. He was a bit proud of himself. Obviously, he was the type of person who people trusted enough to share secrets with. Thus, this episode comes to an end. Remember to like and comment so we can discuss the story together. Until we meet again in the next chapters.